Okay, so there are a few things that we left last week on the Luchot, the Shivrei Luchot, Munachim Ba'aron issue. One of the points that we did not discuss yet is that there is an assumption of this Agadata which may not be true. This Agadata is actually taking a position on which question, specifically how many Arons, all right, Aronot. It's Aronot. It's one of those weird ones, yeah. How many Aronot are there? And this is a machlokes in the Yerushalmi in Shkalim.
Is it a coincidence that there's a machlokes about how many Arons and also how many parochas? Is that a coincidence?
Maybe not, but there's a good reason in the Psukim that there's a suffix about this.
Okay.
Right? Meaning, it sounds like there are two Arons because in Dvarim, Moshe says that he was told to make an Aron when he goes for the second Luchot, right, which makes it sound like that's a different one. So the chronology gets very confusing. But the Yerushalmi says that Tani, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, and some Gersot are just Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish, and other versions, which is obviously very different generations there. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai and Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish, these are not even close to the same generation. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai is
like a Savorai?
No, it was Tana. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, like Tana, and Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish, I assume, is like, I don't know. I get Rish Lakish.
So that's late on, right?
It's not Rish Lakish, but I guess that family or something, right? Rishimon Lakish. But anyways, so he says, "Shtei Aronot halchin im Yisrael bamidbar." There were two Arons. Aleph Shahita HaTorah Nituna b'tocho, ve'echad shayu Shivrei Luchot Nituchon b'tocho. One with the Torah, and one with the Luchot, and one with the
Shivrei Torah.
The broken Luchot. Do you have the source from last week?
I do not.
Wow. Okay. Neither do I. I'm like on my phone.
What number?
What? Oh, sorry, 4. Hadu dichtib. Or if you can get the printer working, then fine. I've sent several to the printer, but the printer is,
Oh, could you send it to my phone?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, can I have it also?
Yeah. Send it.
Give me yours. Here. I like Levine. Like a spot. It's fine. I have a box right next to me.
Okay. Zev.
I'm gonna give them all a little bit. I need to do 20 more questions, and then I have 100 to give it.
Right.
I've done 4 sets of 20 so far.
I'm so proud of you. Yiyasher kochacha.
No, in the Rashi it's like Yishar.
No, it's Yiyasher, just like it is right here. In this Gemara. This is the source, man.
I know. Which sheet are we on?
The one from last week that, do you have it?
I'm not sure. Let's see.
Well, I have it on my phone right now. So, anyways, so that's the first position, that there are two. I am... Yeah, well, it's not. It's probably not. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Hayimunuach ba'ol moed. Had dichtiv Aron b'red Hashem u'Moshe lo mashu mikerav hamachaneh. Zeh sheyushivrei luchot nitanim b'tocho yenichnas yozimenu v'hamshay mitrei imahen. The one that had the real luchot is just in the Ol Moed, and the one that has the Shivrei Luchot travels with them or goes out to war, like in the time of Shmuel.
Yeah.
Remember that, Aron? In the time of Shmuel, the one that went out with the war, beginning of Shmuel, Chafni Pinchas died, that thing.
Didn't they take the actual Aron for that one?
So according to this day in the Yerushalmi, no. They took the other Aron, the one with the Shivrei Luchot. The Rabbanan said no. Aron echad hayo pamachas yotza b'mei Eli v'nishba, and he said no. There's only one, and that one got captured in the time of Eli. It happened once. And what's the proof for that shita? So the Rabbanan say, because he says mi yatzilenu miyad ha'elohim ha'adirim, because they say who will save us from God? It sounds like the Aron, capital, right? Capital T, the Aron, not an Aron. Misayler Shemin Lakish. Vayomer Shaul la'achia gisha Aron Elohim v'lo Aron b'kirei yarim haya. But the problem is Shaul at some point says, "Bring me the Aron," when we know the Aron wasn't there. It was in Kiryat Yarim, not where Shaul was. So then the Gemara says, how do you deal with it for the Rabbanan? So maybe he meant the tzitz.
He just happened to say the Aron.
Correct, fine, etc. So you have two shitot. Now, as the Rashi in general thinks, how many arons are there? Two. The Ramban holds one. Right? And what's the Ramban's proof that the majority view in Chazal is? That's what he meant when he said Aron, because the Aron wasn't there when he said Aron.
Because the Aron wasn't with the Plishtim?
No. You're off on the story. Different story.
Not Shmuel.
Yeah, different stories that are being invoked in this
like
series.
Several years later.
So the Ramban says, they caught the Rashi v'lozeu Aron Shatza b'Tzalel sharei lo nitasku v'mishkan alachar yom HaKippurim kirato minahar tziv elem amalechad hamishkan. Right, that Aron in Dvarim that I said that Moshe made that he went up to the mountain with.
Right.
Rashi says that's the other Aron. That's the other Aron because the Mishkan, Rashi Lishitato thinks that when is the Mishkan built? After the Egel.
Right.
So how could he build an Aron going up? Must be there are two.
Why couldn't he have built the Aron before the...
Because Betzalel builds the Aron. And this one Moshe is being told to build.
I see.
So therefore, and he says, and that's the one that went out L'Milchama, and Betzalel didn't go out except for the time of Eli. Right, so Rashi thinks, sort of mixes the Yerushalmi. He thinks there's two, but that's the Aron, right? He buys half and half. There are two Arons, but the one that went in time of Eli is the
real one.
Is the real one, right? Which is of course not how the Yerushalmi takes it. Which is if there's two, it's the other one.
Now what? The Shivrei Luchot was still around in Eli's time?
Yes, in the other Aron, and that's the one that goes out to war.
Yes.
It's the alternative that they lost the Shivrei Luchot.
But what does the Ramban say?
The alternative was that they just...
But the Ramban says, "V'yesh l'shov achar shotzim misham haluchot v'entam ba'aron shasa b'tzalel ma'haya baseh." He said, "I don't understand what exactly was in there. Like, what is going on here?" V'omrim sheshivrei luchot hayusham v'chein ba'agada. What's his major proof? That the majority of the Agadic tradition is Luchot v'shivrei Luchot munachim ba'aron. The fact that the Bavli in three places has Luchot v'shivrei Luchot munachim ba'aron proves that the Bavli's view is in line with the sheet that there's only one Aron, because if there's two Arons, they have different things, and then they're not in the same Aron. And therefore, and this is one of those funny things that sometimes you find in Agadah, where the Ramban says that, right, an Agadic statement about something completely different, you learn about, the halachic or mitzius assumptions of another halachic reality Agadah-based dispute, which has nothing to do with it, but it's just based on the reality, right? Meaning the Luchot of the Shivrei Luchot can't be Munachim Ba'aron. There are two Arons. The fact that the Bavli in three places says Luchot of Shivrei Luchot Munachim Ba'aron proves that we pass like the Shit Rabbanan and the Yerushalmi.
Works.
Right?
I hear. It's good proof.
And he says that's dat Rabbeinu b'chol makom b'Talmud, right? Because Luchot v'Shivrei Luchot Munachim Ba'aron. Right? This is an amazing moment of you really need to have internalized the working assumptions of unrelated Agadatot to get behind it. Now, once you have that point, so now we can go back and say, well, what is? Now we can really come back to our Agadah and say, wait. It's not just that we hold Luchot v'Shivrei Luchot Munachim Ba'aron, but this is the product of a particular exegetical and historical claim. Meaning, there was another tradition that the Luchot, the Shivrei Luchot, would not be Munachim Ba'aron. Meaning, this position is actually taking. In order to get to this, it wasn't like a given. Right? Suddenly you realize in Yerushalmi it wasn't like a given. Oh, obviously the Luchot and Shivrei Luchot are Munachim Ba'aron. They came to a particular conclusion, and it was a chiddush, and it's if that's the case, there must be something here, because it could have gone otherwise. Right? And that provides the backdrop for sort of compelling claim the Gemara makes, which is, oh look, they're in the same Aron, and that means something.
Because that's a finish.
Exactly.
Does that mean, according to the position that holds there's two Arons, then this whole Agarata is not true?
Well, that's what you don't know, right?
Or
definitely it's not the proof, right?
Right.
So I gave you just two sort of vorts you'll find online, right? Where you see, well, what exactly is the vort then? And what is it really getting at, right? We talked about it a little bit halachic, but what does it mean that they're both there? Because last week we really focused on what does the kavod do to the Shivrei Luchot, so to speak. But that's not really the whole drasha, is it? Once you realize this backdrop, part of the drasha isn't just that the Shivrei Luchot are there, it's that
they're together.
The Luchot v'Shivrei Luchot Malcham Ba'aron. It's the fact that they're together. Right, so last week we focused on what is the chiddush of the Shivrei Luchot. But when you realize the backdrop to this, you realize half the Agarata is the fact that the Shivrei Luchot and the Luchot for some reason together. And now you got to figure out, well, what's the lesson of that? Mm-hmm. So here I gave you, again, these are I just sort of looked online and found a few things that I thought fit with that chiddush of the Agarata. Right. So if you look here at, this is an article by Ari Vestriel.
How do you find
this? I literally Googled.
You just Google.
Until I Googled, and then I go through everything that I find until I feel like I've seen enough. For this, I just Googled, and I'm like, hey, that looks interesting, nice idea. That looks interesting, nice idea. Right.
That one, not so interesting.
Exactly, that's exactly what I do. Haluchot shnehem, or that overlaps with something I've already seen. So he says, Haluchot shnehem nichtavu b'idei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, amnam hevdel echad haya beinehem. They're both written by God, but there's a difference. B'luchot harishonim gam heim atzmo poslo v'naso idei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. B'luba luchot hashnim nemar psolecha. What's the fundamental difference, according to the Psukim? One is written by God, one is hewn by man. Gufa luchot biad Moshe v'aktav mechtav Elokim. One is made and written by God, the other is made by Moshe, written by God. And now we get a little bit drosh, but sort of true. The first Luchot, they're at a level, they deserve pure godliness. After the sin, God's word has to live on human-created things, right? That's sort of descriptive. Haluchot harishonim amnam shurim ka'it. But he says, but if that's true, now you can have this word however you want, right? Pre-sin, post-sin, and leave it at that. Pure God, God plus man. Or in Pshat, the Luchot given bidin, or Luchot given with Yud Gimel Midat Harachamim. Right? Tamarat, all those things. But what's the Chiddush? They're shvurim, but they're not thrown out. You might have thought that, right? You might have thought, if you just read the Psukim, that whatever exactly happened between Luchot Rishonim and Luchot Shneim,
wiped out the first.
Exactly. We've moved to a new stage, and there's no connection to the old one. But by saying no, we maintain them, and we even maintain them in the same Aron. That tells you, right? The imagery Chazal are painting by saying this is that they still exist, and when we, so to speak, look towards the Aron, we see both. We see a broken sort of idyllic world, and then a second chance, which is complete, but we remember that the second chance is a second chance to reach what existed in the first.
We don't lose sight of the end.
Exactly. And that's the imagery they're saying by the two of them, Munachem Ba'aron. And then he says, more than that, once you say that's true, think about what the other Dea in Chazal hold. The other Dea is fascinating. The other Dea is saying, look, the current Brit sits in the Aron, and the remnant sort of they go out, they guide us, whatever.
Right. The remnant,
but if you think there's
towards what we hope we can have, but we
or
can't.
something like that. But if you say they're in the same, that means that it's the same Aron that stayed in the Mishkan and sometimes left. Meaning no matter what role the Aron is playing, Exactly. Right? And therefore that's a theological claim.
Right.
With everything wrapped up in that, and that's actually powerful. So, again, last week we focused on Shivrei Luchot, but then you realize, no, the Chazal, this day and Chazal is making a decision to say that it's not just a statement about the Shivrei Luchot, it's a statement about the Luchot. Right? That the Luchot, which are from a different stage in our relationship with God, magically still maintain a connection with the Shivrei Luchot. And every role the Aron has in our life, whatever you think that is, guiding us, spiritual center, v'chulei, is attached with the Shivrei Luchot too.
Do you think that, is it that they, like, when they were arguing this point, were they, like, was it a machlokes in, like, the philosophy of it, or this is just something that emerged?
So, it could be just an agadic one, and they're just arguing philosophy. It could be that it's historical, and then they derived a lesson from what they think was historical, or it's a combination. That they are convinced that a certain history, right? I mean, it's a combination. There's a certain ambiguity about the history,
right? And
the way you would interpret history would have certain implications theologically, and they were convinced by the combination of their interpretation of the history in the psukim and the theological implications of those psukim to accept a certain read of it, right? It could be some combination of any of those.
And also like a halachic machlokes at the same time.
And with halachic implications and right? What? It is. I mean, there's so many layers to it, and when you realize how many things these were not obvious, and what decisions were made, you're mosif on reading that. I gave you probably a bit of too long of a piece. I won't read all of it. By Torah by Rav Shurlo. If you know Rav Shurlo, he's interesting. He's always fascinating. His questions are always fascinating. I don't always agree with his answers, but his questions are always fascinating.
Barbara now.
He's great. He's a really interesting thinker. Right? Like he's, I'm going to say this, and this is not necessarily about him, but it's a rule in life. I once heard from Ray Chalap that B'Shem Ray Chalap that a good lamdan is like a good baseball player. He only needs to get it like 1 in 3, and a great lamdan is like a power hitter. Right? He only needs to get it 1 in 4. But when they get it, right, it's a home run. Right? Like, people are super, super, super brilliant. Right? No matter what they say, it's brilliant. Sometimes it's wild, and sometimes it's obviously right. Right? They always hit it far. It's a question of direction. Right? And, he said, like, you see this in certain, like, there's just certain achronim, right? Like, you see them. Everything they say is brilliant. Everything. It's just like, some of them you're like, I never could have thought of that, but it's like obviously the truest thing I've ever heard in my life. And other things which is I could never have thought of that, and wow, there's a reason no one thought about that ever, right? Like it's completely brilliant but completely crazy, right? Like, these often, and there are other people who you're like, everything they say, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, it's not like earth-shattering, I could come up with it too, but like, that's just really solid, but like, not like, right? Exactly. So, like, it's not an insult to say that, like, someone, I don't always agree with them. Like, everything they say is brilliant. I'm not saying he's only right 1 in 4. This is just the way I heard it from, is you say it b'shem it's the way they said it. I really do like what he writes. I always find it thought-provoking, whether or not I agree, but that's quite a compliment. So he writes that, I'll say it, I'll sort of skim through it outside. He says, there were 2 Madot Har Sinai. We know that. This is not a Chiddush. Har Sinai happened, yes. Right? The giving of the Torah happened twice. Sure. One is, in Chazal's language, is the Shavuot, and what's the other one? Well, no, Yom Kippur. Right? That's how Chazal. When the second one is actually written. But for his purposes, it means there's one which everybody's there and one where it's just Moshe. Right? That's pshat. This is not like, okay? And he says we barely mention the second one. Right? We barely mention the second one. Like, we don't draw attention to the fact that it is what it is. Meaning, Chazal talk about the fact that it's Yom Kippur, but like, we don't really talk about that fact. Like, it's not celebrated as Matan Torah. But the second one, it's an intimate moment between Hashem and Moshe. But that reality, that these are so different, force us to ask, well, what exactly is the relationship between the two? Right? Meaning the first one with all of the great revelation, the second one, which is not, like, what is the relationship between these two? And what's the answer, he says? Luchot v'Shivrei Luchot munachim ba'aron. That the object that reminds us of both, in the end of the day, they end up in the same aron.
Right.
Right? That the two Ma'amadei Har Sinai.
It's really one.
Yeah, exactly. Right? That they and then he gives a drush on it, and he says, I think what it means is that you go to the end. He says, Shivrei Luchot him a barak agadol, asher herel einay kol la'an nitan lagia. The first one commemorates the thunder and lightning, where you can get, like the sea, right, the climactic moment of Jewish history. When we see the Shivrei Luchot, we remember what we can reach. It's what does it mean to be elevated, etc. But by Chazal saying they're still in the Aron, saying they may not exist in a full form, but they continue to influence us. Right? Meaning, it's not that the first Ma'amad Har Sinai disappeared. I mean, think about the Rambam. The greatest moment in Jewish history upon everything is based is the first Matan Torah. Ma'amad Har Sinai, Pshuto K'mashmo. The Luchot that don't remain, but that's, according to the Rambam, that's literally the most important movement in all of Jewish history that all of faith is based on. You really think you could throw out the Luchot from that one and replace it? No, Pashut Shivrei Luchot. Even the shards of that moment have to remain in the Aron, because that's Yesod that V'amud HaChachma, right? Leida Sheisham Matzuri Rishon. Like for the Rambam, all of faith, right? We're not of God, but everything past that, right? All of Torah is from that moment. And therefore he says the drasha of Chazal is not really about the Luchot. It's about the two moments where the Luchot were given. Is that those two moments both have their place. And even though the second Luchot can only be given in a much more toned down world, where it's a more toned down relationship with God, we need to continue to be inspired by the symbol of the original Ma'amad Har Sinai. And again, I think this is true, right? That once you realize Chazal are making a decision, right? They're saying, right, there could have been two arms, but no, there is one. And the symbol of the first and the second givings of the Torah, and that which is made by God and that which is made by man, and all those things are together, you realize that, again, half the Agadata is about the uniqueness of the Shivrei Luchot, and the other is about the chiddush of the fact that the Luchot, the Shivrei Luchot, munachim ba'aron. The Sfat Emet adds, and this is something we'll come back to because we're not focusing on it. Right, the Gemara had said that the breaking of the Luchot, it had this other Agadic comment, which is Lifamim bitula shel Torah ze yisoda. The breaking of the Torah is its establishment. So that's something we'll talk about separately, which is the breaking of the Luchot. That's the next shir, 2 weeks, I guess, because next week is Shushan Purim.
Shir at your house?
No. People who are coming to my Suda, you can come, and that's it. And we'll move on.
I'd like to see you just talking into a wall.
There will be people there.
If no one comes, I will teach Torah to my children. I will not talk to a wall. Remember that I have people in my house. You know, besides for my students, I love you all, but, you know.
There are going to be people coming. I think David said he's coming.
We might go to his cousins. Whatever. But anyone who is coming has to just tell me. Are you coming? Remember? No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim Clinton coming.
Okay. I figure most people are here. It's only for people who, you know.
Yeah.
We don't have to get into the pshat on.
It's like
you know who's invited, right? Okay. You know the rules in my house, right?
Actually, yeah, sorry for the wall comments.
So, I don't care. The Sfas Emes says, and I think this is part of the pshat, is what does it mean? Pamim bitula shel Torah zeu kiyuma. It's that the fact that he broke the Luchot is what led to the possibility of the second one. And if he hadn't broken them, the second one wouldn't exist. Right? That's true.
Sure.
Right? That's just descriptively true.
Right.
But I think that point is important for ours, which is that it's not just that Luchot Shivrei Luchot Munachim Ba'aron. It's that the breaking of the Luchot, and whatever that symbolized, which you have to go back to that story and figure it out, is what allowed for the beginning of the rebuilding of the relationship that led to the second possibility, the second Luchot.
Right.
I think that imagery is also being captured here.
But we wouldn't need the second one if it wasn't broken.
Well, I think it's the other way around, right? It's you need to have the broken Luchot with the second Luchot to remind you of this, right?
Yeah.
To remind you of the breaking. I think that's what I would add, right? Of everything, right? If you wanted to put it, I would say, maybe another way of putting this is, you need the Shivrei Luchot to remind you that the Luchot aren't permanent, right? You need them together to remind you that nothing, even that written by God, is permanent if you don't deserve it.
Right.
Those need to be together.
But you'll always get a second chance.
You might always get a second chance.
You probably get a second chance.
You might. Okay, I'll skip that piece.
If you have a good enough attorney, you get a second chance.
Right.
Okay, so that is that point. The last point I want to make, or the last set of points I want to make, turning all the way to the end, is more of a halachic point. And that's the following. This is less on this sugya, but it's more to complete the general picture in Chazal. Back to the halachic point we talked about last week, is that what was the halachic, hashkafic, agaric point that the Gemara actually started? What was its main point? Very good. That if you had forgotten by this point where we started in this Agarata, right? The original point of the Agarata is that a Talmid Chacham who forgets his learning, you still have to show him kavod. We talked about how much kavod. You don't have to give him vazem. You do have to give him kavod. Machloket Bavli Yerushalmi, etc. That is nice in theory. But what does that look like in practice? Like, sure, it means don't insult, a very serious Talmid Chacham who now has dementia. I get it. That's like, okay, ABCs, we got it. That it doesn't mean.
So, like, do you insult a regular person who gets
Don't do that either, please. God, that's not what I meant. But I think what you need to do to really sort of get a holistic picture here is, okay, but how do we deal with the reality that Talmidei Chachamim often, as they age, like anybody who, as they age, is not necessarily cut out for the task that they've been doing until now. How does, in practice, we agree you have to respect them, right, or not degrade them. But often, because people are afraid to degrade someone, they also don't take away a job from them that they might not anymore be qualified for. Right? What?
And I feel like you're talking about Joe Biden.
I'm not talking about Joe Biden. I really wasn't talking about Joe Biden.
He wasn't talking about Joe Biden, but now that you brought it up, we're all going to laugh at the fact that it's kind of true.
Okay. I just want to, as someone pointed out yesterday, if you take Tulsi Gabbard out of the picture, right, or Gabbard, however you pronounce it, the youngest Democratic candidate right now is 70.
Yeah.
Okay, the youngest. Okay, this is not just Joe Biden. It's everybody. Elizabeth Warren is 70, and the youngest candidate, because including Trump, because they're all in their mid 70s.
Like 75.
But I really wasn't talking about that much. Wasn't.
I saw this great joke. It was like, oh yeah, the Democrats need to stop kidnapping people out of retirement homes to run in their election.
Yeah, great. Except it's the same thing. The Republicans that are instead, like literally everybody. All the people who dropped out were younger, but they dropped out.
Right.
But what do we do? Like, how do we deal with that reality? Because this is not a new thing, that people get old, and that line sometimes gets complicated. I mean, it just does, right? So what do you do, like, practically? What does it look like, halachically? So let's look at a few Gemaras and try to figure it out, and put together a picture. Again, this is a brief overview. Gemara now most of these sources are taken from a tshuva from Rav Yitzchak Nisim, who was, I believe, the second Sephardi chief rabbi of the state of Israel, who was asked, should we set a mandatory retirement age for rabbis? His answer, by the way, was yes, at 70. That was his answer. Currently, the policy of the Rabbanut is...
was he? He said that.
But currently, not 70. I want pension now. I'm mandatory retiring myself. No. But currently the law in Israel is, at what age do rabbis have to be mandatorily reviewed to make sure they're competent? 75. Then they can be approved for another 5 years and mandatory retirement to 80. That's the current law of the Rabbanut. Okay, we're facing this now in Efrat, because there was a bit of a controversy 4 years ago because the Rabbanut doesn't really like Rabbi Riskin very much. This was very public. I don't have to be secret about this. Whatever. It was all over the news, and they didn't really want to renew him at 75. That was not really going to go over well in Efrat, considering he literally built Efrat. In the 80s when he used to come Efrat, there was just like a little flag that says, one day there will be Efrat here, right? And now there's Efrat. So you weren't really going to retire him. But now he's like 79 and a half.
Right.
So we're at
He's out.
mandatory retirement. Again, this is a person who, there was no reason in the world to say at 75 he should retire. If you don't like his ideology, which the Rabbanut didn't, so then you'd want him retiring at 20.
What's his ideology?
He's just more left wing, so they didn't want to, they didn't really want him there to begin with. But to say he wasn't competent was ridiculous. Meaning, until 2 years ago, on Shavuos, his minhag was that he would walk to every community in the in Efrat and give shir every hour, all night, and he did this until he was 77. Apparently, he stopped last year with the Gan and Tamar. He didn't do it all the way up to us. He did every community except for us, right? But he would go so much so that in the Zayit they said he would come past Vasikin and push off the minute. He just would keep going. He wasn't someone who could look and say, oh yes, he's getting old. He can't cut
Forget that. There's isn't there 3 different hill communities in Efrat, and each shul
5. He was going to 5. It didn't go. Yeah, no, exactly. My point.
At the
this
top
was in
of
his
the hill. You have to climb down.
Yes, and he was doing this at 77.
What?
So there was no reason to say he should retire. Okay, unless you wanted him to retire objectively. Always, having nothing to do with age, not objectively. The opposite of objectively. But.
Right.
So here's what the Gemara says. Va'av Barzilai Giladi Amar LeDavid. So it's an agadic statement, but this is how he starts building it. So in the end, I didn't give. I had mercy on you. Didn't give you the whole Shuvah Yein Tov. I just gave you the reference at the end if you want to read it. I gave you the summary of the relevant passage in Yein Tov by Rabbi Brody in English because I was really nice to you and to myself because it's a really very long Shuvah. Good Shuvah, but very long. Va'av Barzilai Giladi Amar LeDavid. Ben Shmonim Shana Anochi Hayom Haida Ben Tov L'Ra. Barzilai Giladi said to David, I'm 80. You think I know the difference between good and bad? From here you learn that old people, their opinions start to change, right? At some point, it just happens. And Barzilai said to David, look, I'm 80. What do you want from my life? Right? If you tell him to rather. Right, he said their mouths start to weaken. Right, their ears start to. Right, they go through each statement. Their opinions change. Their speech becomes slurred. They become hard of hearing. That's age for you. And Amar Rav says no. Barzilai Giladi Shakra. He's lying. David, Amta Dahavia Berebi Batishin retrenched in Vavetime Kidra. I knew this 92-year-old woman who was a maidservant by Rebbe's house, and she was, Rav said it was only because Shatuf Bezima Have. Nah, he got sick because he was a promiscuous person. Oh. And Tanya Rabbi Shmuel, and any who call Shatuf Bezima Zikna Kofetz at Alav. Tanya Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Talmid Chacham calls Manshim Askinin Chachman Nitosefet Behem. And then the Gemara brings in Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi. No, old people, Talmid Chacham, as they get old, they just get wiser. Shemar Bishishim Chachma Erech Yamim Tvuna. V'ame'aretz calls Manshim Askinin Tipshut Nitosefet Behem. But dumb people, Ame'aretz, the older they get, the dumber they get. Shemar Mezi Safala Nemanim V'tamskinin Yikach. If I just had that Gemara, what would you say? Should there be a retirement age for Talmid Chachamim? Because Talmid Chachamim buck the trend. They get smarter with age. Everybody else doesn't age well, but they're like wine. They just age well.
But are there not Talmid Chachamim who have gotten Alzheimer's disease or something?
Oh, okay, so that's someone who forgot, but I'm saying barring that.
Yeah,
right? Age alone.
Age alone doesn't mean...
Wait, question. Do you consider all rabbis Talmid Chachamim?
No.
But how do you determine that?
Slightly true, which was Talmid Chacham.
Well, I mean, I'm saying, how do you make a rule for the Rabbanim?
What? Okay, again, he's trying to paint a picture. But if we just had that, okay, we would say, no, there's no such thing as retirement. Meaning, at some point, if someone's going senile, okay, fine. Right. But I'm saying, like, age alone should not be. If I just had that Gemara, okay, I would say our Gemara says, look, even someone who has really gone crazy or senile, dementia, whatever happens, you have kavod for them, or don't be mavaz them, but, don't keep them in the rabbinate, please, right? But barring that, age is not enough of a reason. You continue, you get the Leviim, Uben 50 shana yashuv mitzvah avodah v'lo yavod od. Shimon, Mazal Tov, be in touch. Good luck. Don't be quarantined. Okay? Yeah. Be in touch. If you have questions, be in touch, okay?
Well, is Shimon going to America?
We'll talk. We should make sure to talk at least once. Like,
Mazel Tov, Shimon.
Or is Shimon going to America?
do Chazara, yeah. So, if you had this pasuk, so you see that the Leviim at 50 retire, so what would you say?
50 should be the age.
Right. Except Rashi quotes from the Gemara in Chulin. I gave you Rashi because he's shorter. That what does Rashi say?
They don't necessarily.
Very good. The Chazal say no. At 50, they stop schlepping things on their shoulders, right? But they can still open the doors, close the doors, sing, and give advice and whatever, meaning other stuff. So I would say very good. You're right. I agree. Your 85-year-old Talmid Chacham should not be a schlepper. Okay, maskim. Other things he should be allowed to do. The Rambam writes, Zeh shenemar b'Torah b'Levim ven 50 shana yeshuv mitzvah avodah eino lo b'zman shayu nosim ha'mikdash makom l'makom. The Rambam says 50 was only when they schlepped the Mishkan. Ve'eno mitzvah no hegel darod. It only applied to the Mishkan. Aval darod eino leiv nisal b'shanim v'lo b'mu'un ela b'kol shitkalkal kolo mirov ha'zikna yivazel avodat ha'mikdash. When does he stop singing?
When he can't sing.
When he can't sing, at some point, people's voice starts to go, then he can't sing. The Eli sheina nifsal lomar shira, and even that I think that's only for singing. Aval iyam min hasharim. But he can still open and close doors. He can be the greeter. And I always thought I'd be good at this job. The greeter in the Beit HaMikdash, like the Walmart greeter, but in the Beit HaMikdash. Right? Look, that's definitely a better job for me than singing in the Beit HaMikdash. Like, no one wants that. Right? Nobody wants that. The Magen Avod of the Tashbeit says they were also advisors. Ben Chamishim Leitzah. Why does the Mishnah say that in general people are 50 are good to give advice? Because he said that's what Levim did. Shana yashuv mitzvah avodah v'lo ya'avod ela ma yaseh v'shirei rechav latei lo meitzah. So again, if you had all of these sources, you would say, should there be retirement short of someone being physically or mentally incapable of doing his job? No. On the other hand, the Gemara in Sanhedrin Yud Zayin says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, ein moshivin v'Sanhedrin ela balei koma, balei chochma, balei mareh, ubalei zikna. The Gemara says people in the Sanhedrin should be tall and smart and elderly, except in the next Gemara in Sanhedrin Lamed Vav it says, D'Tanya ein moshivin v'Sanhedrin zaken stresu mishein lo banim. But don't appoint an old person, or someone who has no children, or someone who is a eunuch.
Is that appointing or allowing to stay on?
Good. It's not totally clear, right? It's not clear. It could be don't appoint new. But if you look at the logic from Rashi says why not? Because old people, sheshachach kvar tsar gidul banim ve'eno rachmani. There comes that point where old people sometimes forget what it was like to raise children, and they lose the necessary tempering of mercy that you need to be a judge. You know this experience sometimes, the curmudgeonly old people. Not everyone is like this, but there are people who, like, when they were raising kids, they were probably okay with kids sitting on the couch, recognize that kids sometimes spill their cereal on the floor, and like there gets to that age where, I don't know if you have memories, because you guys are a little bit younger than me, but like my grandparents, like my grandmother was still the generation where you had that thick plastic zippered thing on top of the couch. Like that's not, like that age where it's like, you can't do this with kids, right? Like that's not, you just have to be able to deal with spills and stuff. The Yad Ramah writes, Perish Rashi sheshachach kvar tsar gidul banim ve'ena rachmani ve'ena ragil lefaresh zakein v'shadato k'tzara alav ve'ena rachmani. He said, I think it's not really about children as much as old people sometimes have a temper. They just lose patience. It's true, by the way. Like, we just know this, right? At some point, just the way your brain is wired, as you get older, certain things, right? Your inhibitions go down, and even if you're really good at controlling yourself, later, at a certain point, your inhibitions go down. You become incapable, and certain traits become ingrained, and you become a little bit more stubborn. It's just the way our brains work.
Can you also become more calm though?
You could, but usually again, it could be. But there is this thing that, at some point, so based on this, you have a tempering of this. That on the one hand, you have these series of sources of Talmid Chacham as they get older, they get smarter. On the other hand, you say, yeah, they get smarter, but there are certain things that they can't do. Certain positions of leadership they might not be cut out for because of temperament.
Right.
So when you're trying to figure out whether you should retire them, on the one hand, you have to remember that we think that Talmidei Chachamim aging is a benefit. On the other hand, you realize that even if their faculties are there, there comes a point at which not every job is matim for them anymore. But on the other hand, it's really hard to say they should retire because that's a hard thing to tell somebody. And if you look at the Yerushalmi has this amazing line that Amar Rabbi Yishua ben Kivasav, Kol yom hayiti boreach min asura. My whole life, I didn't want leadership. I ran away from leadership until I got it. Now that I am a leader, Kol mishu ba umotzieni. If anyone tries to take me out, bikumkum hazeh ani yored lo. I will chase him with this boiling hot kettle of water, right? Which is a very good way of saying, look, even the biggest Grace and Tzaddik who doesn't want a position of leadership, once you're in it, it really is a big deal to remove them. Yeah. So, you have these competing factors. On the one hand, Talmidei Chachamim, they really do get wiser. We respect our elderly Talmidei Chachamim, and we know it's really hard to take them away from their jobs. Mitzad Sheni, there are certain jobs that really do need young people, right? At a certain age, you're just not you're not flexible enough in the way you think. You're not whatever. You forget Sargidul Banim. You're a little bit stubborn. You're a little bit, irritable or whatever, right? You're not healthy, right? So even if you're just a little bit, right, you have bad pains in your knee, right? That probably affects the way you're thinking. It's just these things affect you. So again, you put these sources together, it's hard to come up with a firm conclusion, but you see the balancing principles. So I gave you just Ray Brody's summary of Rav Yitzchak Nisim's psak, and he says in the basis of this passage, Israeli Chief Rabbi Yitzchak Nisim suggests the Israeli rabbinate could embrace mandatory retirement age of 70 for Israel civil servants on condition that both state and society provide them proper pensions and honorary roles. Right? Basically, look, balance it. Give them honorary titles, honorary roles, meaning the 85-year-old rabbi, invite him to, say the honorary Dvar Torah to Siyum HaShas, but don't have him yom, teaching rowdy teenagers. Come up with something, right? Balance the factors. Others scoffed at the suggestion, contending the passage was legally irrelevant because it applied only to courts adjudicating capital matters, and because Jews had historically allowed their spiritual leaders to serve until they saw fit. Other people said no. To the extent that this exists, it's very specific. Capital crimes. We really don't even want the slightest bit of... Right. Every other job we can live with a little bit of whatever comes with age. And he said, historically, that's what we did. This dispute continues to flare up in contemporary Israel, so now you understand the both sides. I took from one article, he has two. He has one, the generic one, and the other one specifically defending Rory Riskin. So he has two. With the government should definitely enforce regulations mandating the civil service, municipal rabbis leave their posts at age 67, even as many of them continue to serve with vitality. And one major concern about forced retirement is that it violates a halachic principle, which asserts that in the absence of sinful behavior, one may only promote but never demote a spiritual figure. This principle was intended to protect a dedicated leader from suffering the indignity of a major social disgrace. Some decisors, however, have responded that this concern is irrelevant when the initial appointment was made under clearly defined employment conditions, especially when everyone understands that officials must retire at some age. Rainism, moreover, contended this principle would certainly not be a factor. The leader's physical condition did not allow him to fulfill all of his work responsibilities. So again, here I just give you sort of the summary of, again, this is just a summary. You're interested in the topic, to take it lomek, read the whole Shivrei Luchot and the responses to it, but I just want to point out that, again, to fully understand the sugya, it's enough to realize that, this is often the case, right? There's the local sugya, and then there's the broader issues it touch on, which are often completely different sugyas. But this, I think, fills out a little bit of the halachic picture of, okay, but how do you deal with the complexity? On the one hand, you want to give them honor and recognize the benefit that comes with age. On the other hand, recognizing certain roles age just does not matim for. And how do you balance those? And this is, again, one halachic discussion that relates to that, which I think completes a little bit of the issue. Okay,
Is that would Gemara really